Okay, so chilling is an understatement. If you've seen it, it's chilling and riveting. But what struck me most about it, and if you've not seen it, please go grab it tonight. Maybe not tonight, maybe in the morning. Um, it really is chilling. Please watch it. But what struck me really about it, Aisha, was the fact that it was so humane. At the end of the day, we're talking about the butcher of Delhi. But the way you treat Chandrakant Jha is with so much compassion and with so much, um, it almost seems like a tragedy at the end rather than just, a series of killings and body parts strewn everywhere. It is so compassionate. And I wanted to talk to you about that. How do you deal with a killer with so much compassion?
Um, I think so. My interest in true crime comes not like as a guilty pleasure or like wanting to see mutilated bodies all across. I mean, it does come from a place of empathy and compassion. Um, you always do try to find the humane in the story because I don't believe that there are monsters. Like, I don't believe that there are just monsters out there. I think they are made. You're trying to find that in the story, and you try to find, like, the obvious questions are like, why would someone do this?
Yeah.
What made them do this? So, I mean, like, I think in seeking for those answers where you'll come up with the empathy, I think.
And the other part of it is what you talk about. He was an invisible man who preyed upon invisible people.
Yeah.
And given Aisha's background, the fact that she did cover the Arushi murders as well, which I'm glad was referred to as a double murder rather than just Arushi's murder. We often forget Hemraj because he didn't belong to our class. So I think the fact that you looked at something that was outside the class that and the sort of the the privilege that we come from, and you were able to look at someone like Chandrakant and see the person behind him. Who could he have been? What made him what he became? You go back to his village. We'll talk about that as well. A terrifying journey, I think. A village where there's still no electricity, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
And you see the deprivation that he comes from, and you understand somewhat, of what could have made him that. So the point I'm coming to is that we often disregard these invisible men, and this is not a natural, thing for us to look at. What made you choose someone like Chandrakant for this?
I mean, I think the thing that attracted me to this the most was that we hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
You know, like I've studied true crime and I've like observed true crime not just around me in my city, but like across the world. And the fact that something that was as audacious and as brutal as this was missed, where he was literally calling the police and telling them that I did this. It was shocking to me, like it was shocking to me that like,
And throwing body parts outside Tihar jail.
yeah, in their backyard.
Yeah.
So, and in our backyard, it's the center of Delhi, right? So, I mean, I think that is the thing that attracted me to it the most. In that, like, do we only look at certain people because they look like us? Are we in this PLU world only? I think that bothers me a lot. Like, I don't like gated communities and clubs. Uh, so
Maybe we can excuse this one for
yeah,
the change.
yeah, yeah. J- yeah. Cheers.
Welcome to Gurgaon.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, does that answer your question?
And the fact that this guy comes from this utterly deprived community in Gosai, no electricity, nothing, they've virtually nothing to live by, comes to Delhi in 1990, comes to Azadpur Mandi, starts working there as a laborer, fruit seller, vegetable vendor, and the series of encounters he has with this city are so cruel. What does it do to a person who comes from There's this wonderful quote in the documentary where this guy says, you're working hard, but you're working out in the open air, 14 hours, 15 hours, plowing your land. Suddenly you come to the city and you're living in little squalid little
Yep.
boxes if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you may be just under a
Yeah.
highway or
Yeah.
under a flyover. What does it do to that person? And I'm surprised that not more murders and not more
Yeah,
killings.
I haven't walked in his shoes. Like I've only seen where he comes from, and actually where he comes from looks pretty idyllic when you go. Green farmlands and big rivers and like food in abundance.
Cleaner than the city, most probably.
Yeah, and I've obviously been to places where he's worked and where he's lived, and obviously you're thinking, why would anyone make this choice? I think that is the toughest question, right? Like they make that choice because they have nothing.
There's nothing.
I mean, it's you're pushed to a point of desperation where you have to make that choice, and it's beyond the physical condition. It's beyond that you have to live in a certain way or you have to live with maybe 17 people and share a bathroom. It's their existence is inhumane, right? To a point. So I don't know what that does to somebody. But I can tell you, like, to observe it even from this side of the camera it's horrific. So
And ironically, you were doing all this during COVID when we suddenly were made aware, oh, these migrants are the people who built our cities. They worked in our homes. They're people who, we live with, and they had nothing to fall back on. We just, abandoned them, and they just had no choice but to go home.
yeah, so when we started to build this, when the research and development was happening for this, it happened in 2020. And I was asked, like, one of the very first questions I was asked was, like, what is my vision for the series? And that was definitely, like, the first thing that I wanted to explore as a major theme. We had to get to it in episode 3.
Yeah.
Because, there's a certain progression to the story and narrative that you have to go past to, like, actually get there. But yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't just that it was like the brutality of what it was confronting the fact that we ourselves thought that they were invisible.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'm like studying this story. So it was, I mean, it had to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy it was. Let's talk about the police because we often see them as a bunch of, sort of almost comedic characters who don't ever get anything right. Here they almost, again, they work hard. I mean,
Yeah.
and they try their best.
Yeah.
And the way they track Chandrakant down through his letter and one clue after another was fascinating. I mean, it was real police work, good police work with obviously limited resources. The police out there whom we normally don't give enough credit to, and I'm glad you're able to understand that they cracked this case despite everything. And as one of them said, okay, so this happened, but then where's the evidence? The body parts have long since disappeared. So that talk a bit about the police and your approach towards them.
We grew up watching so much. I grew up watching so many like American procedures,
Yeah.
and you have this image of the police like from CSI and Mindhunter.
And then you see West Patel Nagar SHO and you think maybe not.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be like part comedy, part tragedy, and it's going to be its own like Indianness of policing as well. And like as you rightly said, you have to appreciate like the conditions and what they're up against. I mean, I think it's something like 44,000 policemen for the population of Delhi, which is like 22 million plus, right? And I think more than that, like a lot of the percentages with VIP and whatnot. So, I mean, they're up against it, right? Like, if we talk about science, if we talk about forensics, what we have for the population that we have is ridiculous. I think we have 3 forensics labs in the country.
all.
Yeah, and forensics is like, DNA, like to travel with DNA, the cold storage. It's like, it's a whole other mess. So I have full respect for the police. I mean, like they do 6-day shifts. They don't go home. They have thanas where they don't have toilets. I mean, they are up against it. That said, could the system do more? Of course, they can do more. I mean, I think the idea and the intention is that to show that, you know, there are a few good people, but that's going to still not fix a system, you know.
I also love the way you approach the story. It's almost like a detective. You know, you're sort of you're uncovering it little by little, and you know you're as surprised by everything as we are as viewers. I found that so fascinating that you're able to hold yourself back. You know how it's all going to end, but you're able to take the viewer along little by little, uncovering. Sorry, I forgot. I thought I was just chatting to her in my own living room. So, little by little, she sort of it takes us along on that journey, and it's almost like a detective. So, I found that again quite fascinating. Did you have to, when you were making it, did you have to school yourself and say, okay, I can't say more than this at this point. I have to keep it for later.
Firstly, you made my year by calling me a detective because I think
Is that what you always wanted to
yeah,
be
I think
growing up?
I think when I grow up, I want to be a detective.
Yeah, we
But
always had that lady detective thing when we were growing up, which is a
yeah.
little longer than you were growing up.
No, okay. I mean, if you watch the series, you know that we uncovered new material while we were shooting it. It wasn't a part of the plan, and uh, uh, one of the big sort of struggles that we had while editing it was like, how do we weave in the new information? How do we tell the story in a way that because it goes in many places from where it starts. And I think one of the thoughts that I had was like, let's tell the story like we came to the story as well. You know, like we would come to the story, reading the story, and that's how we began. We began with the case files and the documents, and how he was caught, and then we go back a little further, and then you go back even further. So the idea was like to bring the audience along into the narrative as we found it out as well, as much as we could. Obviously there's a little bit of sleight of hand that goes on, and you know, like some hooks and drops to the next episode and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, it was the intention, and I'm glad that you felt that as well.
The other thing is that he's actually a very, in one way, he's also a very moral man. I mean, he does his puja and he hates people who lie, and he thinks that he's murdering only those people who are bad, who are evil, burden on society and all that. That again is quite fascinating. The morality of the amoral man is um, is something that really needs to be studied, since we have a lot of it out there now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, now that you mention it, I think that that is something that definitely is a red flag for me, you know,
Yeah.
when people have such strong and high
Yeah.
moral,
Very dangerous.
very dangerous, like, especially if you think about politically and what's
Yeah.
happening. I think those are definitely red flags and something to be looked at, because what are you grounding your morals in, based on what? Are they excuses for your bad behavior?
Yeah. And how are you so sure that you're right?
Yeah,
I think that's the most worrying
yeah.
thing. I mean, by the end of it, I was surprised that we have only 500 murders in Delhi in a year.
I think they're not
I
documented.
think, yeah.
Yeah, I think
They're
yeah,
certainly not documented, and there's certainly multiples of it.
yeah.
Because the other thing is the rage that you see in people now. If we had the guns that America had, I think we would be a much more violent society. And the idea also that we're a non-violent society, we're not.
Yeah, so this is like a thought that I've been mulling with like over multiple years, which is that when you study, and there's a lot of conversation and film and cinema about like American serial killers,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of understanding of where American serial killers come from, which is like post-war trauma, those families and men who were disturbed and whatever. So we pride ourselves on being this very non-violent, very tolerant. We don't have serial killers, is what a lot of Indians say.
We believe, yeah.
We believe. But I actually, the kind of violence and the level of violence that is normalized in India is shocking, right? Like if you go behind closed doors, you go into the home, you go to the villages, you go to poorer areas, the
And not necessarily urban elite as
urban
well,
elite
yeah.
areas,
Just with fancier furniture.
yeah, and things to throw around.
Yeah.
The level of violence, I mean, is shocking, and I think that we claim that we don't have that kind of like serial killers. I think it's just a function of the fact that our systems don't track it such.
Yeah.
You know, we don't talk interdepartmentally. We don't talk between states. We don't talk. So how do you know if they're serial killers? How do you actually, if you don't have an integrated database of DNA, how do you know? So we don't even have the tech or the science that can tell us. But what we can tell by understanding the humans around us is that we're very violent.
And we're highly dysfunctional families. It's a miracle that we,
Our
you know,
living conditions are
yes,
like human.
yeah, even as I said, with fancy furniture.
Yeah.
So that, did at any point, looking at Chandrakant, did it take you back to Arushi? Did you think, okay, what might have happened there? Was it a moment of anger? Was it, it's something that people will continue to talk about forever, I think, despite there being convictions
The
there.
Arushi case for me was eventually, it wasn't about like eventually like who did it as much, even with this, because I kind of knew
You knew,
who did it.
yeah.
It's the questions around it, right? Like, for Arushi's, like, what happened with her mother with the press?
Yeah.
How they were hounded, they were in jail, and the case goes to the Supreme Court, right? Based on rumors, and a lot of hearsay, no facts, no science,
And the fact that a mother didn't cry. As simple as
being
that.
stoic, right? So the questions around this, the charcha and the rumors, these are the things that are interesting to me in that case. We as a society allowed it to happen to them. Like I went and met them in jail in Ghaziabad, right? I mean, they're still like, who killed our daughter? They don't care that they were in jail. So I mean, like, we destroyed lives because of our morality, because that's not how women are.
Yeah. Or that's not how
Women,
families are,
yeah,
or,
yeah, yeah.
The fact that you were not allowed to meet Chandrakant, I mean, it would have been terrific.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, but you were not allowed to meet him. He is in Tihar jail. He
Yep.
continues to be in Tihar jail. But there's also a moment in the documentary when you say that he's out on parole, which is terrifying. But West Delhi is far enough, no? The idea that you couldn't meet him, you know, how how much of that troubled you?
The thing is, like, if you watch any great, I mean, especially if he's alive, right? Like, you watch any true crime documentary, if he's alive, you've got to get him on camera.
Yeah.
You've got to speak to him.
Right.
We just couldn't, because not just because of the kind of jail he's in, but it was 2020, and
What kind of jail? I mean, there are lots of people I know in Tihar jail who are happily living a very good life
so he had
in
some.
the VIP
I mean,
section.
so to do with the parole thing,
Yeah.
it's a right. Every year they get like 2 weeks of parole, and especially if there's a special condition. So when his mother passed away in 2020, is when he got the last parole. But he committed some code violations while in jail. Some cell phone and something with the cop or something. So his parole rights were taken away. So that's about the parole thing. But also this, BBC docu, India's
on the rapist, India's daughters.
India's daughter.
India's daughter, yeah.
So when that broadcast, they put this blanket rule that you cannot get cameras in.
Right.
So not only that, but then 2020, where anyway even lawyers couldn't go in.
Yeah.
So it was just like no chance to. I mean, we were really hoping till the end. Even while we were editing and we had our 3 episodes down, we were like, we had this conversation with Netflix, like, if we can get him, even if we can get audio of him, we couldn't.
What made you choose this specific case? I mean, there were so many, I guess, out there which you could have done. And the series explores quite a few,
Yeah.
even more startling cases. What was it that drew you about Chandrakant?
So many things. one, what I said earlier, which is that this is a case that happened in Delhi that I hadn't even heard about. It's audacious and it's brutal and it's like a slap in the police's face. Um, but I think also what was really fascinating for me was that, you know, it's the kind of case that allows you to explore so many things. Like when you start to open up and like knock at like a few doors, religion, culture, family, rural, migrant, story, like it's so many layers, city, like it's just opens up so many things. And I think that that's what you want in a case, right? Like you want to be able to talk about psychology, like so many other things, rather than just like he was chopping up people and he was crazy. So I think this is the kind of case that allows you to understand even like the Indian context through a lens right now. Like it's relevant now.
And just the sheer mechanics of recreating some really ghastly scenes. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a particularly ghastly scene for me where he's just chopped up this fellow and his feet are there and he's calmly eating his dinner while sharing the same space as this chopped up man. Just some of those startling visuals.
Um, so you know, I get this question a lot. Like, do you think it was too gory, or do you think it's too
No,
grotesque?
no, no, it's fine. But talk about how
So all the
you get that a lot.
yeah, I do, yeah. So a lot of the
What's the point if I mean if you've got to show a serial killer, you've got to show the
yeah.
serial killings, no?
Yeah, you know, so when we first started researching, we started reading it like off the page. Actually, I was like, this can't be true, right? Like this, when you read it off the page and the way the police write their, you know, FIRs, and you're just like, what? And then we started talking to the cops, and when they're talking about it, I was in disbelief. Like they're just talking very, you know, khopdi and this was cut and I'm like, are they really saying all of this? Um, so everything we did in the reenactments, every little thing, like from the guy eating there, is him. He has said it in his disclosure statement. It's written. If we had cops say everything, it would probably be harder to digest than just to have it as small shots in the recreations, because all of those things he did. I mean, it's almost. I mean, it is. It's hard to believe, right? Like, which is why I think it's important to confront.
Recreating the body parts, very intricate, the arms, the legs, etc., etc. That process.
We had a prosthetics team. We had a really good art department.
Very
Um,
different from your experience in art, in an art department in Monsoon Wedding, I think.
yeah. I mean,
Pretty people, lovely
no.
saris.
But we did some prosthetics in Earth in 1947. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Of
So
course, you had those scenes
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
train station.
Partition and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so we had an art department, we had a prosthetics team, and we had really good editing, and we just, I mean, the thing is that if you look at it closely, you will see that it's a lot more suggestive than it is real, like knife on bone. You know, it is like knife goes up and sound,
And then
splatter.
exactly. And you know the sorry, it's very exciting. And the quality of blood, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The blood sorry. It's it is very interesting. Don't laugh. I once got an hour-long lecture from Vidhu Vinod Chopra on the quality of blood in one of the movies he made because he said, "ये सब क्या टमाटो सॉस डालते हैं हिंदी फिल्मों में? मेरा ब्लड देखोगे ना, पता चलेगा क्या ब्लड होता है। ये उसका जो थिकनेस होता है, कंसिस्टेंसी होता है, वो ब्लड होता है." And
I'll tell
if
you.
you
So
know Vidhu Vinod Chopra, this is
so
exactly how he
I'll tell you.
speaks.
I'll tell you a funny thing. So, what? No, it's not. It's not the consistency.
So talk about that blood.
Yeah, yeah. No, so we talk. Okay, so
You should be laughing, but
no,
what to do?
but you know how film sets are, right? Like we geek out on this stuff. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
like the consistency of blood and what it is and all. And I was like, I want to have flies around the blood. I want them. I want that sound which flies? The blue bottle flies. And I told the art department, obviously I'm joking with them, right? I'm like, I told the art department assistant, I wanted it for the first shot or the first day that we shoot, it's going to happen with them not taking the shot. And everyone was like, it was like cold. They were like, no flies. They were like, there's no flies. So I was like,
what did you do?
We don't have that shot, but we do have the sound in post.
Yeah.
So combination of lemon and sugar.
We did sugar syrup. There were no flies. It was too cold. It was too polluted. We did all
Yuri
that.
is used to all those historicals that he does. Everybody blood splatters.
Also,
and
we
all
were
sorts
very, very low budget crew. We had like very little time, and they were like, "How are we going to trap flies?" I was like, "It's your job. You find the fly."
How nice, no, to be the boss for a change.
It was so good. It's so good.
Because you've really worked your way up, haven't you? But you've worked with some fantastic people. I know it's a digression, but can we talk a little about working with people like Deepa Mehta and, Meera Nair? I mean, iconic women.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Like amazing. I mean, I have to say, like, and you know this obviously, that like, when you finish working in a film and everybody's like, never again, never gonna do it. Hate those people, never talking to them again. But genuinely, when we made, like, when it was 1947, which was my first film, and most people are anyway biased about their first film.
Yeah.
It was a co-production, so it was like a part Canadian crew, part European crew, part Indian crew, and I had never seen systems work like this. In India, we didn't have those kind of systems at that time. Point, Excel and all got them in, and then Lagan got them in. But this was before all of that. And it was amazing to me that, that all this chaos, and I thought it was like madness, but there's method, right? Like, and there's proper systems, and there's like a lot of like respect for work that happens. I was blown away, and beyond all of that, we knew while that was happening that it was going to be a good film. Yeah. And that's rare. It doesn't happen. And actually, the next time that happened was on Monsoon Wedding. Yeah. And it was rare to work on two films that were like so special and like so beautifully made, and like so much about the women that made them and the choices that they made. And I think to be in rooms when they were making those decisions was like amazing.
What an education, right?
Yeah.
And after that, I think you worked on Laksh and
Yep.
Yeah. What was that experience? That was Farhan, right?
Yeah. No, so Laksh was amazing as well. Like, it was a war film, which war films are not my like favorite genre, but like there was like a war choreographer that came in from somewhere, and like all the scenes of the soldiers are all designed and mapped, and that was like I was an AD on that. It was like the longest film I've ever done, because the Bollywood films are super long. Yeah. It was like 9 months, out of which we were like 4 months in Ladakh. So it was a whole other kind of experience, because all the other independent and co-productions are like
40 days, 60 days, done.
Yeah.
Monsoon Wedding was what, 25 days, 27
44.
days?
I mean, with reshoots, right. But for 40 days.
Lakshya was not a fight master, it was a war coordinator, whatever.
Yeah.
You were in Laksh, Yuri?
No, I wasn't. But are you saying it was not a fight master?
No.
Oh, choreographer.
No. It's an action director who came.
I didn't even know such things exist.
No, action director and choreographer. The team came from New Zealand to do it. Yeah.
So then you go on to become an independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
But you're always sort of attached to Excel and
no, I mean,
Tiger Baby in some way.
No, I'm not attached. I mean, we're friends. I mean, when you do a film like Lakshan, especially over like a year almost, you become good friends, and we've been like, I mean,
with Rima and Zoya, who were also ADs on that, or what?
Rima was an AD, Zoya was exec, and Farhan was directing.
Right.
And then, yeah, I mean, we've been in touch, like we're friends and things like that, but not like, it's not like attached to a production house or something like that.
How tough is it to be an independent documentary filmmaker now, when finally documentaries and true crime seems to be taking off?
I mean, I think this is the best time.
Yeah.
I mean, now is the best time, because you have like an elevated sort of genre. It's the craft is amazing now. Because of the craft is amazing, and you have platforms like Netflix and stuff doing it at that level. You have an audience who is out there and sort of like really hungry for it. So I think it's the best time, actually. It's not tough right now. Probably was tough like earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the craziest thing you've heard in response to Indian Predator? apart from
Oh,
that?
we thought you were boring, but you're crazy.
Okay, I'd like to ask you if you have any questions. Yes, please. And please identify yourself. Yeah. Sure.
Good evening, Ayesha. This
Hi.
was a good series.
Thank
I
you.
absolutely loved it. My name is Captain Vishal. I have a question. I'm curious over here. Help me with that if you can. You said that you never had an opportunity of speaking with Chandrakant, right?
Yeah.
You never met him.
No.
So whatever you got the information was from his disclosures, right?
No, we spoke to his lawyers.
Okay, so you show in this series, three-part series, that he is praying. He's a
Yeah.
Hindu who's praying.
Yeah.
So was it your imagination or was it a disclosure?
So it's a big part of his
Now,
conversation.
was it your imagination or he disclosed that?
He disclosed that.
That he used to pray?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
And
also, sorry?
and he goes further, but like he talks about like the kind of prayer and
He does.
yeah.
Okay. That's surprising because you happen to mention the political situation also in the country. You just mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I was just surprised. I have another question that I want to ask you is that, in the whole talk, none of you talk about the victims. It was almost like you are empathizing with Chandrakant. There's a statement which is done by the forensic lady, the in charge, that if you help these people, there's an opportunity that these people can switch over. You know, do you really feel there's a redemption for these people? They can switch over. I want to give you an example. A rape happened, 30 seconds more. A rape happened in Madhya Pradesh of a young girl. The person who was incarcerated, charged under POSCO, he was in the jail for 1 year. He comes out of the jail after 1 year. And you know what he does? He goes and he gang rapes her. So you really think there's a redemption for people like this? Thank
So
you.
it's not my place to make that comment. I think it's the place for professionals to make that comment, and I think it's also it depends on how you view the judiciary. Do you believe that being incarcerated or going to jail is a lifetime sentence and people should just be in there, or do you believe that that's for reformation? So
No, but also I think in the documentary, sir, she does actually mention and she does deal with the victims as well. We may not have talked about it here, but she shows it in great detail. And in fact,
actually, yeah.
when she talks about Anil Mandal's, that's my bad, but well, that is my view of the world. Your view of the world may be different. But I think the point that she makes, the point, I will ignore that. The point she makes with the Anil Mandal and especially his son when he talks, I think that's a very powerful scene. So I'm surprised you say that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and just to add to that, I mean, part of the tragedy of the whole thing is that the police doesn't even know the rest of the victims, right? Like
There were
they don't,
7.
they don't know. They didn't know how to catch him because they couldn't even identify the victims' families. So, I mean, that we even were able to be in touch with any of the victims' families and even get them on camera is like, I mean, it was hugely surprising even to us that we managed to do that.
And I think when Bharti Mandal says, I'd cooked rice and dal for him and I waited and I waited.
Yeah, yeah, and the runaround that they got
Yeah.
from with the police.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, just imagine not being told that for 3
yeah,
years.
yeah. So I mean, I don't think it's for me to care about the victims, right? It's like for the system to care about the victims as well.
Well said.
Also, I want to know about speaking to the cops. I mean, how candid were they? They seem very candid in the series, and that was very fascinating to see. And also the fact that that letter got leaked to the media, and I think that's how this whole this case came to the limelight, and that pressure was built on cops. Otherwise, it would have just been ignored.
Yeah, I think we were really lucky to get both of them because they were quite open and quite excited to talk to us about it. Both of them have moved on from that position, so they were looking at it as like a case that's done and gone, and it's closed in their headspace. The case is done. So they were just like sort of recounting all the moments, all their beats, all the stuff, how they made it in court, and like I think they were quite excited to actually
Revisit.
yeah, yeah.
But there's also a fascinating scene to me in court when I think he's sentenced, and he's being taken perhaps to the prison van, and nobody's looking at him. Everybody's looking at, I guess, your camera. I mean, they have no idea that there's this serial killer in their midst. Because, we don't carry those tattooed on our foreheads, right? So the fact that this could be the guy next door, this could be your vegetable vendor, this could be, someone who's working in your home, that's also terrifying. And that scene to me really brought that home.
I mean, I think what we struggled with a lot, I struggled with a lot, and I think that is a balance that we wanted to figure out was, I don't want to put the fear of anybody
Yeah.
in the audience. I don't want you to suddenly be like, oh my
Don't
God.
want to label or sort of stigmatize people.
Yeah, but he
community.
was.
Yeah.
He was, and and the people he killed were as well. So I think that is a balance that you try to figure out. And we have somebody who even says it, like Utkarsh, who's the journalist.
Yeah, the journalist.
He does say, like, I didn't think he could be anybody, but any killer could be anybody.
Yeah. It could also be Chandrakant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I wish you'd got to interview him
Yeah.
because what Kaveree said in the beginning was that you need to know why that he prayed and stuff like that, like the captain said, and you said. Why would an amoral guy be immoral? You said that.
I mean, moral
So
guy.
a moral guy be and you said that he came from idyllic settings, and why would he want to come to a city, and why wouldn't he? I mean, that's aspirational. He would want to come to the city, but then why would he want to jeopardize his progress by becoming what he did eventually become? So I wish you got to interview him.
I mean, there are multiple things that you said in there, but I think that morality is very subjective, right? Like, so the stories that you tell me about you being moral are by your standards, and not by somebody else's standards or the world's standards or society's standards. So he may have believed that he is very moral, but was he?
Yeah.
So Ayesha, I wanted to ask you, a lot of the evidence you uncovered in the course of this entire series, the cops didn't. And when they were presented with this, what were their reactions like?
So we called them when we were in Bihar, and we were like, we're like panting, like we found these photographs. And they were like, what are you doing in Bihar? Why are you there? Like, he's in jail. So quite nonplussed, quite not interested, like quite.
It also moved on.
They moved on.
Yeah.
They're like, they're not understand. They're like, he's in jail. Like, why are you bothered? What is this? Yeah.
There was this one scene where the cop is like so excited about the cocaine. And I remember messaging you saying, he's like really excited about the cocaine. And it was like such a revelation for me that they were like so happy about it.
So when we were editing, and Netflix was like, he's not being serious. So we can't make him be serious, like, about this.
That's how he is.
Like, he's excited about it, like, you're going to just be like, he's like telling the story in this way. Like, what are you going to do? You can't suddenly be like dramatic where he's not dramatic, right? Like, so, yeah, I mean, we have a drinking game around that. He says, Kopri, you do a shot.
Yeah, please.
So it's not really a question, but more like an observation. Am I loud enough? Yeah, almost. I just feel that Roy watched so many crime series and we speak about it in a very different sort of light. And then we have medicine and doctors who do it for a living and they're saving human beings. They're doing exactly the same on the other side of the table. So, and we don't think of that as grotesque, and we don't think of that as any, sort of feeling of disdain to human life and stuff. It's like how these people could almost have that very, very sort of functional approach. Sometimes it's like just a thought, because I've always been watching, crime series for so long, that you want to give it some reasoning, that how can someone who wouldn't even pinch another person want to feel that cutting and all of that becomes sensible? Because you're teaching that to another job, in the name of knowledge. And then these people just pick it on and they do it without feeling that they had the right to do it, but then doing it. And I don't know. I mean, that's the only logical, strange relationship that you bring about with human against human with this kind of an approach of dissecting bodies, right? Because I remember even that Nathali case that happened, and he was supposedly a doctor, and he went on this strange journey. But if he was a doctor and he was doing that, it was looked upon as a noble profession of anything. So I'm just sharing that that's a very weird dichotomy of thought that the society lives with.
Yeah, like when some of the policemen were describing it out of the case files, they were using very medical ish terms. But decapitating the head from a certain point and how he stopped the blood flow and all. And uh, Chandrakant comes from a Brahmin caste of Jhas from Bihar, and he used to do the Kali Puja. So he used to do the Balidan, and I think he used to do that very regularly back in the village. The goat. So, I mean, that brutality also has some kind of impact in life. Now, so we were meant to speak with his brother. So there are like 6 brothers, and we were meant to speak to the nephew, and they declined at the last. Like we got there, we got to their home, and then they didn't want to be a part of it. They actually, so 2 brothers died in jail, or one died just coming out of jail. One committed suicide. One had mental health issues. And this guy who was, in a government job in a nearby village was just like, we don't want to have anything to do with this. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to be known as his family. Finish. Like we don't want to be on camera.
And his own children.
So his children are here in Delhi. They're in Delhi.
But you obviously, did you ever meet them off camera?
No, we didn't meet them, but we made contact with them through the lawyer, through Chandrakant's lawyer and his wife. But they wouldn't appear on the camera unless he appeared on camera.
What sort of trauma does that leave with the survivors? It's unimaginable.
His family.
His family as well. I mean, not just the.
I think his family and his wife believe that he's innocent. That he's innocent.
That he didn't do it at all, or was he justified?
So he very much says that he's innocent.
But he's also, yeah, challenging the system.
He's justified in his sense of his morality. So I want to ask about that. No, because his lawyer tells you in that interview that the people that he killed were also bad people.
Yeah.
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 He said somebody had
Yeah.
stolen something.
Yeah.
Somebody had lied.
Goes on to say somebody left jute non-veg plates. Yeah. And that just brings up that whole caste.
But no, no, but actually that's also been misunderstood. It was just that they were dirty plates. He ate meat. It was just that, just that it was, it was just that it was like dirty plates they were left, jhuta, that he was angry about. So he has his own, like, I think again made up, cooked up ideas of what he wants to justify. Yeah, he just wants to justify his rage and anger, and
But is it like tactical? This I'm innocent thing.
his innocent thing is tactical. It's actually to get back at the police because he thinks that the police are buffoons. They don't have a case, and they can't technically get him. That's what he
But
believes.
also that they brutalized him.
Because they brutalized him
Yeah.
is what he is trying to prove, that the police are buffoons.
Yeah.
What was the reason given to you that you can't see him?
He's in jail.
No. Anybody who's in jail can be interviewed and whatever.
No.
Did they give you a specific reason?
No,
That's what
because
he said, the
you
rules
can't.
have changed.
The rules have changed. You cannot interview for anything that's going to be broadcast.
Unless you're a high net worth individual.
Like who?
Lots of high. Lots of HNIs in Tihar jail, I hope you
No,
know.
who have done interviews?
No, they've not done
Yeah,
interviews.
yeah.
But they've done.
Because if they've done interviews, then I can interview.
Yeah.
uh, no.
I'm just thinking like, how what would you be thinking when he gets to a movie soon on?
So we made contact with him. We made contact with him. He knows that the series was made. He wants the series to be made.
I wonder if his family's seen it.
I don't know. Yeah. So the forensic psychologist that we spoke to said, like, at one point, she's like, "Do you realize that you're probably like completing his like life's dream?" And I was like,
But she also says that you create a system for me and I'll reform people like him. A very wise woman. Where did you find her?
You know, she did some forensic work on the Arushi case.
Oh,
Her name is mentioned in Abhiruk's book.
okay.
So, and we have such few forensics people. She was one of the people that we approached to do it. Yeah.
So he's coming out on parole regularly, once,
He's
2 weeks every year.
he was
Is there a season 2 in the
he was
Not.
he was coming out like 2 weeks every year, but his privileges have been revoked. He's committed some kind of code violations over the last couple of years, and he's not allowed now.
Do they wear these scraps here? Like, have you seen they're out on parole and
No. He's in a confined space. He's not like, yeah. Oh, what do you mean when he's out in parole? They don't wear any tags. No tags. He's out. When he's out, he's out.
I think they have to report to the police
Yeah,
station every
yeah,
day, every
yeah.
morning. No. Didn't you hear about Manu Sharma partying at that nightclub when he was out on parole, supposedly
Actually,
because his
the
grandmother
IO
had died?
Sundar Singh was quite shocked to find out that he gets parole. When we first told him, he was quite shocked. He was like, "I had no idea that he gets parole."
you could have met him while he was on parole or something.
But it was like 2020, no?
You finished doing the.
No, 2020.
started.
COVID.
When he got parole.
Yeah. And then COVID happened, and then there was just a complete lockdown in the jail.
Aisha, I think everyone wants to make this series with you again. A lot of people.
Yeah.
We do see crime sometimes. I mean, even of course, Quentin Tarantino style. There's some glamour. So, is there any pressure when you're making a true crime series? Is there any pressure to make it in an aesthetic way or to kind of make it more glamorous? Or the more gruesome better?
No, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like there's any pressure to make it glamorous. I think, I mean, actually, if you see and observe the shots, we actually have cut around performance. There's no like real performing. There's like parts of body again, like whatever, like. So I don't feel like there's any pressure to conform to a certain aesthetic, but like, you're working with a cinematographer, you're a director, and obviously there has to be a visual style and form to what you're doing. So you follow certain things that are appealing to you, but also, by sort of immersing yourself in the material. So we tried to keep as real, like the room that we recreated the room. We recreated every part of the room, every little like thing that was in the room, written as per photographic record. So that's as it was.
I wonder what your dreams were like when you were shooting this. And that was COVID, lockdown, isolation. It must have been.
Pretty peaceful.
Yeah.
We were just so tired, so I was just like happy to go to bed. But
No nightmares.
no.
But also, I mean, what happens behind the camera can actually be a dark comedy by itself, like you were talking about the whole blood situation.
Yeah.
So when all of that is happening, how do you still, keep your focus on the story?
So, I mean, like, as you also know, right? Like, Okay, so when you're doing documentary and there's a lot of drama in documentary, there are two parts of it. One is obviously when you're taking interviews with people and you're really getting the narrative and you're connecting the dots and you're understanding what all that is. And there's a part where you're sort of recreating and you're working with actors and there's sets and there's props. So a lot of that is, there is a lot of play. You know, there is a lot of like fun times and play that happens with all of that. When we were in Bihar, we were working with complete non-actors, people who we've just cast from the road. I mean, like one of that stabbing scene, for example, when Akhilesh told us on camera that this has happened, we were all just like, after that day, we were just like, did he just say this? Like we had no idea like what information. So we were like, we have to do a stabbing scene tonight. Like we have to do it now, you know? So it was like, you sort of like improvise and you're doing like drama. So that you shift modes. I think the crew also shift modes, you know, like you're like, okay, now I'm listening to somebody's story, that's a different mode. You're recreating something, that's a different mode.
So when she asked that John Lennon's question, how do you sleep at night? Probably a question was it whiskey or gin?
Both.
So I think any more questions, please? She's here for a bit. I think you can do that over red wine or whatever. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed watching it, and I enjoyed the conversation here as well today. I think all the questions were super. I think you can come here next time and I can be in the audience. But thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to be here. And thank you, Ayesha, for doing this.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to what you're doing next.
Thank you,
Can you talk
Kavaree.
about it?
I can't actually.
Okay, but it's not
true
blood.
crime.
I
Yeah,
know, it's not.
Yeah.
What a pity. But thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.